Another archetype I want you to be aware of, the trace rifles. They got a buff, and I want to get it out of the way. The question of, are these finally getting to a point where they can be used regularly? They're not quite there. I still have some issues with these weapons. They're getting a lot closer though, a lot closer. They're 1 or 2 buffs away. They got something similar to what the auto rifles got. And they actually got something a little bit better. It does make all the difference in the world. They're now dueling better than they ever have, just like the auto rifles. And throughout the video, I'm going to cover a couple traces as I go through it. Trace rifles general, all of them. They increase the effect of the stability on recoil reduction at the low end of the stat by around 10%, and at the high end of the stat by around 25%. And remember, on auto rifles, they increase the effect of the stability stat on recoil reduction by around 20% at the high end. So on that high end, 5% more than ARs, and on the low end, 10%. ARs didn't even get that 10%. So what that means, on the high end of the stat, 100 stability, trace rifles are 25% more stable than they were before. Less visual recoil, less actual recoil. And at 0 stability, which isn't a thing, they're 10% more stable. So on the high end, you gotta try one. There's multiple traces that get 80, 90, 100 stability. They are literal laser beams now. Unbelievably stable, pinpoint, just like high stability auto rifles. And since they don't move, that means that when you're flinched, it's a lot easier to recuperate, get right back on target. All in all, take Aggers here, 99 stability stat. Playing with these, you can feel a difference. Again, literal laser beam. And in all gameplay, I have on Trace Unflinching. Aggers is one of the better picks with this Trace buff. It pretty much is getting the full 25% more stability. Aggers has its exotic perk where final blows generate a slowing burst of stasis around your defeated target, but importantly, its catalyst will give inform. When your super's full, long press, hold reload, drain your super, overcharge the trace. More damage, and to me at least, this video is coming out after Iron Banner Eruption. Straight up, this is a play in Iron Banner Eruption. With how quick you get your super, you can have the exotic perk up a lot. And not only that, if you die with the perk, it holds the energy. You don't need to wait that long to get it back, and sometimes it will just straight up loop after you die if you're doing well with it. Really crazy weapon for Iron Banner. It's worth noting, I did not see any trace rifles during Iron Banner or in Control. Nobody's using them. So another thing I want to point out with these traces, over half of them have 100 aim assist. 5 exotics have 100 aim assist. Wave Splitter, Cold Heart, Divinity, Aggers, Prometheus Lens. The lowest AA trace is Retraced Path at 94. So for the most part, they are juiced with aim assist. Targeting on all of these that aren't 100 will get them to 100. So in the case of this Stasis Trace, 99 stability, 100 aim assist. When it comes to Destiny, you really can't ask for anything more. And then we have Cold Heart. Cold Heart is another one that really benefited from this buff. And with all trace rifles, Cold Heart was one of the ones where you felt it the most. It's the initial trigger pull. Originally, when you press the fire button with a trace, Cold Heart had a dramatic pop to it. It would pop straight up, rise up, and then start to level out as you're holding down the trigger. Well, it still does that, but since it has 90 stability with the catalyst, it's nearing that 25% extra help. That original trigger pull is just subtle, and then it goes straight into laser beam mode, and Cold Heart has what I like to call the super rampage to it. Cold Fusion exotic perk states that if you deal damage on the same target, longer than it remains on the target, it deals more damage. So if you're able to do a quick 1-2 on an enemy, go right to the next one, that second enemy is getting melted, getting 30 plus on the crit. And 30 plus damage with these trace rifles on the crit is getting into like an optimal 0.4 TTK, lightning fast. Cold Heart's great, but I now want to start talking about some of the downfalls of this entire weapon class, then transition into another trace that has a little positive to it. These have a 0.73 TTK. Most of them do. 10 crit, 2 body. Wave Splitter, Cold Heart can get a little bit faster, 0.67, because they have a little damage boost within their exotic perks. So 0.67, 0.73. Sometimes you get lightning fast TTKs with Agger's exotic perk, Cold Heart ramping up. There's some legendaries that have damage perks on them. And before I forget, a real plus to these, consider most are right around 100 stability, if not 100. They're getting massive anti-flinch help with that. Then you add on Trace Unflinching, so it's even better. So not only are they a laser beam, they're accepting flinch really well, and you can see that in the gameplay. But these Trace rifles start off with 50 shots. You spawn in 50 rounds. When you pick up a special brick, it is 29. So even though it's a 10, 12 bullet kill, you usually spend about 15 to 20, making sure they go down with the beam. You're gonna mess up a little bit. You find yourself constantly running brick to brick to pick up 29 at a time. In range, they do good. A little bit past their fall off, they do really good too. So you're getting anywhere from a 0.67 to around a 0.8 with some body shots. Then you're definitely looking for ammo. Or we have something like a high impact pulse. Same range, they duel exceptionally, 0.67, 2 burst. Around the same crit ratio as the trace rifles, and you aren't scavenging around for special ammo. Aggressive pulses like Insidious, 0.73 TTK. Rapid fire autos are at 0.77. Now those are closer range, but The point is, these optimal TTKs are very close to what these trace rifles bring to the table. And with the pulses, you have arguably more range and just as good stopping power. So it kind of makes you think, why would you use a trace? Yeah, they feel pretty good now, but other weapons match their range, match their TTK. And that brings me to Divinity, actually. Kind of weird talking about Divinity here in the Crucible, which, by the way, obviously, this is more of a PvP video. This buff was for PvP, and in PvE, they're going to be a little bit more laser beamy. But there's something special about Divinity in the Crucible. And by the way, in the gameplay, I'm running Getaway Artist. I'm bubbling them and letting my little arc buddies get the final blows, but for whatever reason, Divinity is the only trace in the game, exotic or legendary, that starts out with 80 rounds. And let me tell you, it makes all the difference in the world. These things shoot so fast, they dump ammo so quickly, that I encourage Bungie to actually allow all trace rifles to start off with 80. It might have something to do with how Divinity is getting kills. It's a little bit less damage per shot. It has the buff bubble. It's a weird situation, but 80 starting is a world of difference for these trace rifles. It doesn't feel as starved as the other ones, like at all. Huge difference maker. When you take something like Forerunner, it's getting a good amount per brick, and they made it to where you don't feel as starved for ammo. Sure, you're gonna need it, but not like the trace rifle. So in the end, Bungie is asking you to use a special weapon auto rifle, essentially, the trace, that blows through ammo. The TTK, yes, is on the faster side, and when you do land like all crits and melt somebody, it is worth it. But when you start weighing the pros and cons, the options, getting 29 per brick compared to like No Time to Explain, Messenger, it's not that hard of a choice for a lot of players. I began the video talking about how these are getting closer. They are, as far as dueling, really good. Your next play session, just use one for a game. Try one, you'll see, you'll feel it. So the first step, they did a good job. That's accomplished. They're dueling well. These have had issues with return fire, so upping stability helps that return fire. To me, the next step would be look at the ammo economy for them. And I do believe that the 80 start is the difference maker, because in the end, again, a lot of weapons compete with that TTK. They use primary ammo, not have to worry about brick hunting. With an 80 start, they can breathe a little bit as they go brick to brick. I don't think that a faster TTK is the answer. A 0.67, 0.73 is on the fastest end in the game at base. I wouldn't touch that. But the starting ammo, I think, could be. And I don't think that the general population is going to be opposed to that or think that that's OP, because again, primary weapons match that TTK. Things like Forerunner that take special ammo are popping people for a 0.6 at 45 meters. I give them props for giving these some love. They could have left them as it is. So I do hope that they continue. They're on the right path. The only one that somewhat bypasses the current 50 starting ammo economy is Ruinous Effigy. It has 78 stability, so around 20% better recoil. It can be felt, but it has noticeably the worst range out of all the traces. It has a range of 45. All the other traces clear it by 20 range. The range is noticeable, but what it has going for it is after the kill. You get the kill, make them into an orb, third-person corners, and let's be real, that's exactly what we're doing with this thing, and you get another kill. So technically, every kill that you make creates the ball to make another kill. It's a little 2-for-1. Other traces, I mean, I got Vault pressured into deleting Golden Tricorn, other roles, but legendaries, Hollow Denial, Retrace Path, craft them and get high stability. Path has Golden Tricorn, Focus Fury, Frenzy, Hollow Denial, Swashbuckler. I wanted to make this video because a lot of these patch notes, it's just a line or two, and they get passed up. Like, I do feel auto rifles are in a really good spot, better than they've ever been. The same goes for these trace rifles, and a buff like that is altering to an archetype. Making it have 25% less recoil is a big deal. I do recommend just going to Control, put on one of the exotic traces, and try it for a game. Get into a duel. And I can only imagine what M&K feels like with them. Soup it up if you want with Trace Unflinching, Trace Targeting, and see what they're all about. And again, little tip, use Agger's Scepter and Iron Banner Eruption. The exotic perk is up indefinitely. And I do think once the Arc Chaos Reach on Stormcaller gets the faster super, I think that's going to be a really good loadout. I'd like to know your thoughts though. I wanted to make you aware. And from playing with them for the past couple days, again, they do duel better. It's winning a lot more, but the ammo economy is so bad. It's terrible. And I do think that Forerunner is like the perfect debate topic because again, you don't feel as starved with Forerunner. You're gonna need ammo, but not like a trace rifle. If you use one, you'll know exactly what I mean. If you do decide to go into play session, try one of those exotic pulses. If you're there, might as well try Divinity too. See what the 80 starting is like. I think it makes a world of difference. If you're new here, remember to hit the subscribe button, and if you are subscribed, thank you so much for your support. Let's talk about trace rifles down below, your thoughts on them. I haven't seen a single one, but they did get a buff. Thank you for watching, and until the next one, I'm CoolGuy.